This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. For help with your retirement, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with the team at ProStatus Financial Advisors today. Just call 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com.
And welcome once again to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and Podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. Katherine Groce is here. Lawrence Kiely is here. My name is Randy Cook, and each week we sit down here and talk through some of the issues of retirement, some of the concerns that you might have, and hopefully we can ask some questions, answer some questions for you. One way that you could actually ask a question is to use our website, which is askmikeradio.com. So you go to that website, ask your question. We'll put it right here on the podcast or on the radio show as well. All right, Katherine, let's get into it here. Not a lot of people are talking about Warren Buffett anymore. He's 95 years old now, but he's still out there, and he just retired at 95. But before he left, he moved a whole bunch of money over to cash. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should do right now because that's what Warren Buffett did. But what I am going to say here is a lot of us regular people will do the very same thing. We get to retirement, and not only do we retire from work, but we also retire our risk. They tell us less risk in retirement. So I want to ask you, when you do that, if you pull out of the stock market, are you also creating a new kind of risk for you in retirement? Do we really need that stock market? Some people maybe yes, some people maybe no. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think it all stems back to having a plan. When you're pulling back from risk, you could also be causing, risk of not keeping up with the pace of inflation if you go to cash like that. But, Lawrence and I's job when you come and sit with us is to, like we said, look at the budget, look at what amount of assets we have to set aside at the end of the day to cover your day-to-day income needs. And then when it comes down to the rest of your portfolios, we call that the extras money. That pays for the RV, the beach house, things like that. Then we look at how risky or conservative do we want to be with that money? Because at the end of the day, your month-to-month bills are covered by the safety side of the portfolio. And that all, again, comes down to having a plan. And this actually kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with a client came in for a review last week. And she came in with a screenshot. Her and her husband came in. She had a screenshot of what the market returns were for the last 3 years. Well, obviously the market's performed well over the last 3 years. And she wants to know, well, what's my portfolio performing? What's this performing? What's that performing? And they had a layered plan. They had, some annuities that we had set aside 10 years ago for income for them. So for when they retired, they had guaranteed income. They had some money in the stock market. That was kind of that third leg of the stool for the extra side of the portfolio. She had a state pension, and they both were taking Social Security at this point. And, she's asking me, well, what did the annuities earn? What did this earn? What did that earn? And I'm like, well, hold on, pump the brakes. The annuities have a very specific purpose, which is to pay income. The returns aren't sexy, but at the end of the day, you know that your income is secure. So you're getting $50,000 a year, no matter what the stock market does, $50,000 a year in income to supplement your pension and your Social Security so that, every month and every day of the week that that your bills are taken care of. Now, when we look at the stock side of the portfolio, then we could be as risky or as conservative as we want to be. And when they first came aboard, they kind of were approaching that retirement side. They wanted to take less risk. So they were more of a moderate type investor. And I feel like most people when they retire are more of a moderate investor. And we would classify that as someone who's about 60% in the market, 40%, in some type of fixed income strategy. And, and I'm like, well, the 60% of your portfolio that's in the market's on pace with the market. The 40% of the portfolio that we're on the fixed side is beating bonds. So at the end of the day, your portfolio is doing what we designed it to do. But she kept coming back to, well, the last, the stock market made this much, stock market made that much. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we're retiring from what the stock market did. Our returns are as competitive, not as high as the market, but the risk is much less. And that's something that I think as phase 2 fiduciaries that we basically work through that plan. So we take on as much risk as you want in retirement for those extras. Another conversation that I kind of have around risk too is some of my elderly clients. I have some clients that have transitioned from, living at home into like an assisted living facility, and they sold their lifetime home and they came into a bunch of cash from that. And then they had their portfolio that really they weren't drawing from. They were only taking their required minimum distributions. They didn't need it to meet their day-to-day income needs. They were lucky enough to have long-term care policies, so they weren't drawing from the portfolio to cover their assisted living charges. And when they first came in after selling the house, the kids all came in with them and they were like, well, we don't want to risk this money. We want to make sure it's as safe and secure as possible. And so we did that for about the first year. And then it's been about a year since they've transitioned into the assisted living. And then we had another conversation around it. And we're like, well, at this point, the goal has changed for these investments. Now we want to create legacy for the kids because they're not using the money. So we could afford to take more risk with the goal in mind that we're trying to create a legacy. So again, it all stems down to what is the money for, and is your portfolio working in tandem together to meet all those goals efficiently and effectively?
So, Lawrence, when I think of a 20 or a 25-year retirement, what I do is I kind of take it and say, what if somebody retired in 2000 and look at all the stuff that they went through? They went through the tech wreck. They went through the subprime mortgage crisis. They went through COVID. There was a lot of ups and downs in the market. And during the last 25 years or so, is a person's risk number, so to speak, the speed limit that they want to go in the market or with their retirement, is it a sliding scale? Like right now, we've got markets that are going very, very well. Does somebody push in just a little bit more during times like this? And then when things get tough, they pull back a little bit? Or are you who you are and your risk number is what it is? And I hate to use the word set it and forget it, but is that kind of the way it is?
No, I think it is a sliding scale and it can change over time. I think the biggest thing in the way we construct the portfolios is important because when it comes to retirement plan, it's very different. Retirement planning, it's very different from the accumulation phase to where you can have this risk number and then just invest, and you do kind of set it and forget it, and you're not worried about it because you have all this time. The market's going to go up and down. It's going to bounce back, and you just want to kind of set and forget and let things accumulate. When it comes to retirement planning, it's very different, and that's why we want to have a conversation and a plan, because we want to make sure that we're setting up certain buckets aside, right? That first bucket that we want to set aside and take care of is that income bucket. And we want to break that off from the other side of the portfolio, from other buckets, because we want to make sure that regardless of what happens in retirement, stock market's up, stock market's down, we don't want to worry about that because we've created this bucket that no matter what's going to happen in the market, you're going to get the income you need in retirement. And then we can focus on the portfolio and kind of your risk number and how much risk you want to take, or what, you know, how big of a pill you can swallow when it comes to risk, on how aggressive or conservative you want to be. And that can adjust in retirement. Early on, you might say, you know, I want to be a little bit more conservative while you're starting off in retirement, because you don't know you don't know exactly how it's a new phase of life, right? You want to just get comfortable with the way income is set up and coming in. You want to get comfortable with the life changes, the to-do list, the traveling that you're going to do. So you might want to be more conservative. And then as you get used to that, you say, you know, things are going well. I see that the income is taken care of and I'm getting that consistently on a consistent basis. And I have my savings here, my nest egg that I've built up. And now I want to be a little bit more aggressive, or you know, I don't want to worry about that at all. I want to be more conservative, but that can be a sliding scale to where we don't really care. And I say that with air quotes, we don't really care what happens on that side of the portfolio, because again, regardless of what happens in the market, your income is taken care of, right? We obviously want to pay attention, and that's where that active management style comes into, where we try to, you know, without having a crystal ball, try to protect the assets as much as we can. And it is actively managed. So we will pull back, we will move to cash or become more defensive, even on the equity side of the portfolio, because it is an actively styled managed portfolio. But again, you can be as aggressive or conservative as you want, because we've taken care of the income. And that's kind of that first phase of our retirement planning, is making sure that income bucket is taken care of, so that you can have that sliding scale in retirement to where maybe you start off more conservative or more aggressive, and then later on that changes and that flips. And as Katherine mentioned, you know, lifestyle changes, goals change in retirement. And then again, if we're creating a legacy later on and your income needs, your long-term care needs are kept or met, then we can be more aggressive, because maybe we're just trying to grow the portfolio additionally for the kids or the grandkids. Or maybe it's the opposite, depending on how you feel. And maybe you just want to preserve those assets. So you want to take less risk and just have a very, you know, conservative 4% growth rate to keep up with inflation, because you know, hey, I'm leaving $2 million behind. I just want to make sure that's maintained for my kids or grandkids. So we take a different approach, but it's all customized. It's not a cookie cutter plan, one size fits all. It's all very individualized and customized depending on your goals, you know, the income you have. Everything is very customized and tailored for each individual family or person when it comes to our planning.
When it comes to risk, Katherine, you know, you always talk about buckets of money, and they could be a different tax treatment of those different buckets? Do you have different risk buckets as well? I've heard people say, I've got a 5-year bucket, and those are for my immediate needs, and that's very, very low risk. I want to make sure that that's there for me. Then there's a 5 to 15-year bucket, and then there's a 15 to 30-year bucket or something like that, and they're all at different risk levels. Is that another way to look at this?
Yeah, I mean, just like you can diversify your taxes, you can diversify your assets, you can diversify your risk as well. So that's a very good point. There are some plans where we put together where the income for the first 5 years, might be drawing from the portfolio because that makes the most sense at that time. And then after that first 5 years, then we go into a more guaranteed income strategy, such as, an income or dividend producing portfolio or an annuity. And then down the road, that meets all the income needs, but inflation, we've had some spouts of higher inflation over the last couple of years, so we might have to draw a little bit from the portfolio at that point. So there's always different buckets set aside for different things, but they're not set in stone. And that's the whole point of having a plan, is that we adjust that plan and we tweak the plan to customize it to your individual needs. And we meet a couple times a year to make sure that we're on track for our plan and have the goals changed, et cetera. And if you feel like you don't have a fully written income plan where your risk is being considered, and whether your risk is addressed frequently as you're approaching retirement, give our office a call, 866-597-1040. Again, 866-597-1040. We're going to look at everything with your portfolio. We're going to look at, how much money you have in the market. We're going to look at how much taxes you're paying. We're going to look at inflation. We're going to look at Social Security, where your income's coming from. We look at all aspects with a dollar in front of it. So at the end of the day, that you know that your plan is customized to you and it's going to meet your individual goals.
So much of this changes when we get into retirement. Your whole life you've been putting money in, and then in retirement, you're going to start taking money out, and that comes with a whole different mindset and also comes with some strategy and some planning. Let's sit down and have that together. Give the team at ProStatus a call. It's 866-597-1040. Again, 866-597-1040. Many of you will want to use the website. That's great. TheSavvyInvestorRadio.com. 2 V's in Savvy. TheSavvyInvestorRadio.com. And there you're going to see a number of different choices there. There's a button that says Schedule a Call. And click on that. And that basically schedules a call where we sit down for 15 minutes and say, what's on your mind? What has got you concerned? What are you worried about? And how long are you going to be before you retired? What have you done for retirement? What do you want to do in retirement? Let's put all that together. And if there's some gaps there, maybe there's no tax planning there, maybe there's no income planning there, maybe it's just all about investments. Well, there's more to retirement planning than that. Let's get all that under the one umbrella of retirement planning. TheSavvyInvestorRadio.com or 866-597-1040. That is all the time that we have on the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast for today. Lawrence will give you the last word on this one.
This is Lawrence Kiely. Thank you for listening to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast.
And I'm Katherine Groce. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.